all I'll say is that if you remember, I mean, there's a lot to say about this, really, that, regardless of whether it makes people mad or not, I mean, the science is what it is.
Yeah.
Just remember what I said. The brain makes predictions about internal changes in the body first, and then it starts to prepare motor action. And then it makes a prediction about what you will see and hear and feel based on those actions. Okay? So it's also the case that we didn't talk about is that sensory sampling, like your brain's ability to sample what's out there, is yoked to your heart rate. It's yoked to your heartbeats. There are certain phases of the heartbeat where it's easier for you to see what's happening in the world than at others. And so if your heart rate goes through the roof, you will be more likely to just go with your prediction and not correct based on what's out there, because you're actually literally not seeing as well. Or you will see things that aren't there, basically.
Is there something that we could say by way of advice for when this episode is released in the chaos of emotion? Sorry, I don't know a better term. That's just flying around on social media. What's
Well, I actually think it is emotion in the following sense. And it sounds a little bit like artificial in the way that I'm about to say it, but I really think that this is what's happening. One thing we haven't talked about is, brains didn't evolve for you to see, they didn't evolve for you to hear, they didn't evolve for you to feel, they evolved to control your body. That's why you have a brain. You have a brain so that it can control your body. And the metaphor, there's the scientific term for predictively controlling your body is allostasis. Your brain is attempting to anticipate the needs of your body and meet those needs before they arise so that you can act as you need to act. And the metaphor that I use is a body budget. Your brain is running a budget for your body. It's not budgeting money, it's budgeting glucose and salt and water. And instead of having, one or two bank accounts, it has gazillions. There are all these systems in your body that have to be kept in balance. And it's monitoring very closely. It's making predictions about, like, when is it good to spend and when is it good to save and what would be a good investment and am I going to get a return on my investment? Whenever people talk about reward or reward prediction error or anything to do with reward or punishment, they're talking about the body budget. They're talking about your brain's predictions about whether or not there will be a deposit or withdrawal. So when your brain is running a deficit in your body budgets, you have some kind of metabolic imbalance, you experience that as discomfort. You experience that as distress. When things are chaotic, you can't predict what's going to happen next. So I have this absolutely brilliant scientist working in my lab. His name is Jordan Theriault, and he's published this really terrific paper on a sense of should. Like, why do we have social rules? Why do we, adhere to social norms? It's because if I make myself predictable to you, then you are predictable to me. And if you're predictable to me, that's good because that is less metabolically expensive for me. Novelty or unpredictability at the extreme is expensive. And if it goes on for long enough, what happens is, first of all, you will feel really jittery and antsy, which we describe as anxiety. Mm-hmm. It isn't necessarily anxiety. It could be just something is not predictable and you are experiencing arousal because the chemicals that help you learn increase your feeling of arousal, basically. Mm-hmm. But if it goes on for long enough, you will become depleted. And you will start to feel really, really, really distressed. So what we have is a culture full of people right now who their body budgets are just decimated.
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. When you talk about it as depression and anxiety, it makes you think that it's not about your metabolism, that it's not about your body budgeting, that it's not about getting enough sleep or about eating well or about making sure that you have social connections. You think that it's something separate from that. But depression and anxiety are just a way of being in the world. They're a way of being in the world when things aren't quite right with your predictions.
That's such a deep way of thinking. Like the brain is maintaining homeostasis.
It's actually allostasis.
Allostasis. I'm sorry, and it's constantly making predictions. And metabolically speaking, it's very costly to make novel, like constantly be learning to making adjustments. And then over time, there's cost to be paid if you're just in a place of chaos where there's constant need for adjusting and learning and experience novel things.
And so part of the problem here, there are a couple of things. Like I said, it's a perfect storm. There isn't a single cause.
Right.
There are multiple causes, multiple things that combine together. It's a complex system, multiple things. Part of it is that people they're metabolically encumbered and they're distressed. And in order to try to have empathy for someone who is very much unlike you, you have to forage for information. You have to explore information that is novel to you and unexpected. And that's expensive. And at a time when people feel, what do you do when you are running a deficit in your bank account? You stop spending. What does it mean for a brain to stop spending? A brain stops moving very much, stops moving the body, and it stops learning. It just goes with its internal model.
Brilliantly put, yep.
So empathy requires, to have empathy for someone who is unlike you, requires learning and practice. You're foraging for information. I mean, it is something I talk about in the book, in 7.5 Lessons About the Brain. I think it's really important. It's hard, but it's hard. I think it's, it's hard for people to be curious about views that are unlike their own when they feel so encumbered.